So Outlook's just opening up now. It's kind of weird actually because I've obviously got two screens. Well, you might not know that, but I've got two screens running here. So I can actually see the stream and my screen here, and there is quite a time delay. So it's kind of a bit weird to watch, but the quality looks decent. So anyway, the slide that you're going to see in a few delayed seconds is how your scope currently looks. Come on, in your own time, YouTube. There's no rush. Oh, there it goes. Obviously you can see your C6 there. And the finder scope is actually working, so that's good news, which is actually really quite helpful because I do still need a regular finder scope here. But below the C6 you'll see the small red CPWI camera, and that has got a let's think 2 to 12 millimeter zoom lens on it that gives me a field of view of about 100 down to about 30 degrees. Currently set for about 30 degrees. So that's the view that you were seeing a couple of minutes ago. And then obviously, you know, your C6, it's a 6-inch scope here. We've got a focal reducer now that's sitting behind the scope. It's a 0.63 times Celestron focal reducer, which brings the field of view up to about 0.68 degrees, and perhaps more importantly brings the F down to about I think F6.3, which is really helpful. And then we've got a 9 megapixel CWO camera. That's the main camera in the optical chain. It's about 3000 by 3000, and that is Joy joining us briefly here before she goes to bed. So yes, that is my camera, isn't it? Yes. Oh, so Joy's just giving me a hug here. She's going to bed. So yes, we have a 3000 by 3000 square format camera. The pixel size is 3.75 microns. In the middle of the optical chain is a CCD CLS filter that is doing two functions. It's a UV IR cut, and it's also acting as a sky glow filter. So it's basically taking out sodium lighting sky glow. So that's the sort of main optical chain, and then you see the Efinder that's sitting below the C6, and then obviously we're sitting on an equatorial mount. And I'm hoping very much that my wife is going to take Joy away so that I can actually concentrate on what I'm doing here. Man alive, it's difficult when you're trying to do this. But anyway, so yeah, Gary, that's what your C6 looks like at the moment. A little different to when it came over, but it's pretty near an optimal setup the way it is. I have tried a 0.33 focal reducer on it, but that's kind of a bit too severe and certainly doesn't work with the 9 megapixel camera. It works with a smaller 1 or 2 megapixel camera, which has got a smaller sensor size, but doesn't work very well with the 9 megapixel camera. And just to give you an idea of what we're doing from a software perspective, the sensor is providing obviously 9 megapixel frames. each frame there's a what's called a flat and a dark image added. The dark image uh, basically takes out hot pixels, and the flat takes out variations in sensitivity across the sensor aperture. So once you add those two things in, hopefully you get an almost perfect frame. The frames are then stacked in a stacking package. I use a program called SharpCap Pro. That does a couple of things. Firstly, it aligns the pictures because even though I'm on an equatorial mount, there is some misalignment between pictures. So it actually aligns the pictures first, and then it stacks the pictures in what's called a live stacker. And I have controls available to me that allow me to change the live stacking parameters. And then the image pops out of the live stacker, and I can do some final adjustments to it before I actually end up with a final image that I'll just save. Typically, with what they call this EAA, so Electronically Assisted Astronomy, basically you're not allowed to do any post-processing. So everything that you do in terms of processing needs to be done in real time, and you save the image in real time. That kind of makes a distinction between this and astrophotography, where essentially you go through the same process in astrophotography, but you use longer duration images, and you also do considerable post-processing to really get a super nice image. But anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of the workflow that we've got. And kind of the whole purpose of this is we've kind of lost our outreach capabilities with San Diego Astronomy Association, because obviously the whole coronavirus thing. So a number of us now are trying to go online. And so I'm actually using an open source program called OBS to do the streaming. The stream is then going into YouTube Live, and obviously what you're seeing is a combination of my desktop and the webcam, and hopefully I may switch the webcam off at some point if it starts to impede on the workspace I got here, which is fairly limited on the laptop. So so I know you're still there, Gary. Hopefully you haven't fallen asleep. Is anybody else there and capable of actually typing something? Mike, if you are there and you're not capable of typing something, can you drop me a text message just to let me know that you're actually up and running? I'm actually going to go and grab my phone as well, because I'm going to use my phone to give me a little bit more information while I'm doing as we sort of go into the looking around the sky bit and actually looking at a few objects. So I'm just going to quickly scoot away, grab my phone, and I'll be right back in front of the microphone. So just stand by and I'll be there. So. Okay, I'm back, and the good news is that Mike is online as well. So welcome to Mike. He's actually watching what we're doing on his Roku, which is going into his TV, so he's not actually able to type in the chat box, which kind of explains why I'm not, why there's more people online than are currently chatting to me. But anyway, I think he's going to go and get a laptop as well, so that he can actually type something. Unfortunately, with YouTube Live, there isn't the possibility of doing voice chat, which is kind of a pain. But I haven't got a paid version of Zoom at the moment. Otherwise, I would have done it on Zoom. And that's kind of limited to 40 minutes. And I thought we'd probably take about an hour. So anyway, so Mike is here. Hopefully he'll be able to start typing something soon. Gary's definitely online. I should still have one additional person online according to the analytics that are coming up. And I still don't know who that is. And maybe it's Brian, because I only sent the link out to 3 people. So perhaps it's Brian. Or maybe it's counting me as one of the people watching since I'm doing the stream. I'm not really too sure, because I do have the Yafe's laptop running next to me, and she's logged in to this, so I know that would be one of the people. Anyway, moving on. Right. Okay, so just to give you a quick run around on my desktop before we start, so that, yeah, just to give you a quick run around on my desktop so that you can see the main pieces of software that I'm using. So I use a couple of different pieces of software. I use a program called CPWI, which is a Celestron program that does the mount control. I can actually bring that up. So this is CPWI. It's not too bad for mount control software. What you can see at the moment on the screen is my 5 calibration points for the mount that I've chosen. So the 3 stars in the summer triangle, Deneb, Vega, and Altar. And then I was able to pick up a couple of extra points on Jupiter and Saturn. We do have the moon rising, which is a bit of a pain because it's actually fairly full. You'll also see the red line going across the screen at the top. I can do the mouse on it here, right here. That's the meridian. So if we were to point on a target that is on the other side of the meridian, the scope's actually got a slew around 180, well, actually 360 degrees. So we won't be going past the meridian. So that's kind of my limit in terms of the direction south I can go. Because if I go past the meridian, since I haven't got any calibration points in place, then I'll end up missing my target. And as I said earlier on, I've got a fairly narrow field of view. It's about 0.68 degrees. So all the targets we're going to look at are going to be on the this side of the meridian, on the east side of the meridian. Unfortunately, because of the sort of just the way things are, there are a boatload of actually quite good targets that's currently sitting on the west side of the meridian that we're not going to be able to take a look at. But there's enough targets on the east side that it'll still be pretty interesting. So this is the Celestron CPWI tool. It allows me to do a couple of things. Find targets, although it's good for finding targets, but it actually seeing them on the screen is kind of a bit poor. I've also been able to set up a pointing model within the software that allows me to improve the pointing accuracy of the tracking mount. You can see on the screen here some of the errors that I've got around the various points that I've been selecting. And it's reasonably accurate. The targets are not going to end up completely smack in the middle of the screen, but they'll be close enough. And we'll go from there. So that's the first piece of software. The second piece of software is the stacking program. I'm actually running 2 versions of the stacking program at the moment. One version, yeah, one version is picking up the image from the um, Efinder that's sitting below the telescope. And I don't know if you saw that, but there is actually a plane flying through the field of view there in the bottom left-hand corner. So this is my Efinder, and the reason I got this on the scope is basically it allows me to see that I'm not pointing at somebody's house or into the trees or whatever. And then there's the main version of the which is connected to the main camera, and this is currently looking at Deneb. We're going to be using 10-second images tonight, so we're going to be doing an exposure for 10 seconds. I actually need to drop the gain down on that, so let me drop the gain down there. We're going to be doing 10-second exposures, and then we're going to be stacking those 10-second exposures. You can see on this side I have all the various controls for the camera. Here's the capture area. I'm saving PGN files, my exposure time, balance, white balance settings. This is a cooled sensor, so it's running at about -5 degrees centigrade at the moment. And then I've got a histogram control here for doing image manipulation, and I've got another histogram that I can get to. This package is, and Mike's actually on chat, which is fantastic. This package here is about $15 a year, so pretty cheap. And it's like the de facto stacking program that's out there. It's written by an English guy, does a really good job, and pretty regular updates. And like I said, it's kind of the de facto EAA tool at the moment that almost everybody uses. Okay, so let us first of all just take a look at the the sort of area of the sky that we're going to be looking at. As I said, we're kind of going to be looking at the area between the summer triangle, which is Deneb, Vega, and Altair, although Vega is actually now gone across the meridian, and then down to about Jupiter and Saturn. And we're going to be looking in this area. And there's a few Messier targets in there at the moment, so we'll start with one of those. And probably the easiest target for me to start with is M27, because it's a nice, relatively bright target, and it's a pretty, it's a nice planetary nebula to take a look at. So I've selected M27 now on my mount control unit. You can see where it's right here. So I'm now going to slew to it. So my mount control software is controlling my mount that I can't actually hear outside. It's about 20 feet away from me on a USB cable. I'm actually sitting inside, as you probably gathered from the webcam. And so we're now on the target. So usually the first thing I do here is I will take a look at my wide angle view. That's my wide angle view of the sky. The top of the telescope, or because it's sitting under the barrel of the telescope is actually up here. So the the target would, if you could obviously see it, would be here, but it's a fairly faint DSO, so you obviously can't see it through the. Mike's just texting me, so I'll take a look at that text in a minute. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go across to my my main camera. I'm running 10-second frames at the moment. You can see the frames coming in at the bottom of the screen. Hopefully the green bar is going across, which counts the frames off to 10 seconds. And I'm just collecting frames. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the live stacker, because in order to actually be able to see anything, we're going to have to take multiple frames and live stack them. So I'm going to turn on my live stacker and I'm going to clear the live stack. And we're now going to wait for a couple of frames to come in. And hopefully we will be able to start picking out an image from here. So it's not quite real time because obviously you've got to wait for the 10 seconds frames to come in, and it usually takes a couple of frames before we start seeing anything. And I'm just going to boost a couple of parameters here just because this is looking a little bit weaker than I would like it. So I'm going to bring up my brightness a little bit, and I might bring up my gain a little bit as well. Okay, I'm going to clear my stack again. Let's see what happens. Okay, that looks a little bit more promising. Now I'm going to move my histogram controls here. These histogram controls set black level, white level, and midpoint. So if I bring my black level all the way up here, all you see is the really bright stars. If I bring my black level all the way down there, you'll see a lot of gray as well. So normally I try and set my black level about coincident with the peak. I'm going to color balance here. I've got a couple of auto color balance controls at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to click on the first one. That's kind of helped a little bit, I think. Let's try here. No, let's try that one. Okay, so we're fairly color balanced. And I can actually see the image there. I'm not sure if you can, but we'll be able to see it in a couple minutes. Right, so there is our first image. I'm going to turn that crosshairs off. So this is M27. It's the Dumbbell Nebula. And we have, let me have a, you can see in this corner here, I'm subtracting blacks and flat images from it. So I'm removing the hot pixels and hopefully balancing the black level across the screen, although I must admit it does look a little bit redder up here than down here, but whatever we'll do with that. And you can see the Dumbbell Nebulas come up already pretty quickly in 10 frames here. So we've done about 100 seconds of stacking, about a minute, not very much. I'm just going to give a little boost. There we go. And I'll bring it up a little bit. There we go. So now we're looking at a pretty nice picture of the Dumbbell Nebula. Let me go, and the nice thing about having two computers here is I can run Wiki on one of them, and so I can just give you some stats while you're looking. So this is Messier 27. Or NGC 6853, and it's a planetary nebula. And of course, as you likely know, planetary nebulas have got nothing to do with planets. They're basically stars that have done a large ejection of matter at some point, but the star is still central to the planetary nebula, and we can actually see the star in question right there. So that's the star that at some point in the past there ejected a huge amount of mass and is probably now heading towards or something like that. And this is the ejection of that mass. You can see it moving out in a circular wave, much as a ripples would when you throw a stone in a pond. And you can see the wavefront moving out. A couple of different colors here that you know. The red is typically hydrogen alpha emission, and the bluey green is more oxygen related emission. But as you can see, for a 3-minute stack now, that's a fairly decent image And I can probably clean it up a little bit more. I can get some of that redness to go away. There you go. It's kind of a decent image there of M27 um, with just a little 6-inch scope. You're certainly never going to see this visually. Um, not with a 6-inch scope and not under these light conditions, because this is basically Bortle skies here. But as you can see with the EAA stacking software, it does a superb job of actually giving you a lot of detail with respect to this particular target. So yeah, so that's our first target of the evening, and we will. Okay, so Mike asked how many light years 100, 1,230, according to Wikipedia, which is where I usually get most of my facts and figures from. And it was obviously discovered by Charles Messier in 1764. It became part of his famous Messier catalogue of things that are not comets, because he wasn't looking for, when he put the catalogue, well, in fact, it wasn't even a catalogue. I mean, it was a catalogue of things that weren't comets. It wasn't a catalogue of Messier objects. It sort of changed into that. So the central star is indeed a white dwarf. Yeah, and it's not a very big target. The apparent dimensions on this are about 8 minutes by 6 minutes, so fairly small target that we're kind of looking at. Because I'm actually only looking at, if I look at my full screen again, that's about 0.68 degrees by about 0.68 degrees, so about 40 minutes by 40 minutes, something like that. All right, so I am now going to go and find another target for us to look at. Oh, and Mike is saying it's quite good using the big screen TV and the laptop. Okay, and I've got a picture here that obviously Gary won't be able to see, but I have a very nice picture here of, oh, well, actually, Gary, you can see it because he's texted you as well. So you can see both his laptop and the 80-inch TV in the background there, I'm presuming. Right, so we're going to go and find another target. And for that, I'm going to, I think I'll actually bring up, yeah, I think we'll go and do an even smaller target, which I think we can actually still view at this time. So let me go and see if I can find that. Okay. Oh no. Unfortunately, it's just crossed the meridian, so I'm not going there. That would not be the best place to go. So we'll miss the Ring Nebula, unfortunately. So let me figure out another target here. I should have actually been doing that while I was talking. So let me just go and figure out another target here. I'm just going to use one of my phone apps, assuming I can find any of them at the moment, to bring. Great, I've got Flipboard. It's going to tell me a lot, isn't it? So that's the last thing I want, for God's sake. All right, so let's try and close all those down and let's start again. Okay, so I've got a decent, right, I just got to find the right map here. Because some of these applications are better at telling you where things are in the sky than others. Of course, I think I've picked one of the ones that isn't, maybe I'll just use Stellarium. Right. Okay. So let's see if we can bring up an arc target here. So there are a couple of globular clusters around here. If I remember correctly, I think M71 is probably, or M15 actually is maybe kicking around here. So let me go and see if I can find one of those, and then I can do a little better job of finding the next target before I'm kind of ready to go show you something. All right, so let's have a look at M15. Yeah, we can get M15, I think. Yeah, we can get M15. So let's go to M15. So, right. And here you can see my wide angle view. And all of this light here, I'm presuming, is the moon coming up. Because I can't think what else it's going to be over there. Because that's certainly bleeding bright. But we may be able to, this may still work. I'm certainly not hitting the trees, which is good news. So let me bring up my other screen. I'm now going to clear my stack. And I'm going to start picking up pictures of M15. And let's see. Oh, there we go. So as you can see from the first picture there, we're already on the money. We've not quite centered, but we're close enough not to worry about it here. Just going to start moving my sliders around a little bit. Just right. So here is M15. Yep, that's showing nicely. So I'm going to just let that stack for a couple of minutes here. And while I'm doing that, I'll just bring up Wiki so that we can get the major points. So M15, obviously a globular cluster in the constellation of Pegasus. And this was discovered, well, like most things really, a long time ago, 1700s. It's in the Messier catalogue, although I think it was actually first found by another Frenchman. And it's one of the older globular clusters. And you can actually tell that pretty much from the color here. The colors here are fairly representative of what's going on. And you can tell there's a pretty reddish, orangey hue to many of those stars. And that indicates they're old stars without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, there are some younger stars in here as well. You can see some of these. You can see some bluish stars here. These are young stars, but many of the stars in this globular cluster are pretty old. It's some distance away, 33,600 light years, so it's considerable distance, and about 175 light years in diameter. So it's a fairly large object. And I am just trying to reduce some of that background speckle that you can see there of the redness. Now what you do find here is that, probably got that blown up a little bit too much, that the central core will burn out a little bit. And also because this is a camera sensor with fairly large pixels or relatively large pixels, you do tend to lose some of the definition around like the pure number of stars there. I mean, if you were to look at this through a visual telescope, you would certainly see more stars. But having said that, and actually globulars do show pretty well in a visual telescope. But again, you won't see the color, for instance. And over time, this picture will gradually improve. Again, we've done about 3 minutes of stacking, and you can see we have a fairly decent. Yes, well, yes. Well, actually, yes, Mike. As you said, the Radio Ranch. Now, that would have been a perfect place to do not only amateur radio, but also for an astronomy site as well. So, who knows? Maybe I'll contact John and see if he wants to sell it. That would be pretty cool. Anyway, that's M15. So we'll just let that settle for a couple of minutes here, and we'll see if we can bring up perhaps another target. Nice to actually. Oh, yes. Yes, I think this will be a really interesting target to see if we can see this, particularly with the moon being as bright as it is today. So we're actually going to go and take a look at the Crescent Nebula, which is not that far away from Deneb. So at least we're pointing away from the moon, which is kind of helpful. So let me go back to my mount control software. Let's find the Crescent Nebula. Yep. And we should be fine. Let me just check that. Yeah, we're in a good spot for that. So we'll swing across the Crescent Nebula. And this is a much more difficult target to image than a globular cluster. So this is visually you would not really stand much of a chance of seeing this unless you had a fairly big globe or something to look for. So this is a much more difficult target for to view, just generally speaking. So we're at the target. Yep, we're at the target. So a couple of things. I will just take a quick check, and yep, we got a clear sky, so that's always good. And so our mount stopped. So let's clear our stack. And we're going to collect the first of our frames here. Let's bring that down to 0, down to no magnification. And let's give this a couple of seconds to grab a couple of frames here before I start adjusting things. So the Crescent Nebula is an emission nebula in the constellation of Cygnus, about 5,000 light years away. And this is an absolutely beautiful object if you want to see some fantastic pictures of it, both Hubble telescope and also if some of the Astro guys got some fantastic pictures of the Crescent Nebula. It is formed by a fast stellar wind from the Wolf-Rayet star colliding with and energizing the slower moving wind ejected by the star when it became a red giant. So it's basically the result of a collision between a couple of different stars, and what you're seeing is the shock wave. Yeah, there it is. There we go. Okay, so it's going to take a few moments for this to kind of develop a little bit. This is a really weak object, or it has a fairly low magnitude. It's about 7.5. And whoops, I need it. Okay. And it has two arms that are much brighter than the rest of it. So to actually see the rest of it, you kind of have to push things a little bit. But if we give this a few moments to grab a few images here, we'll start playing around. We'll start playing around and see if we can make this look a little better. And basically, again, you know, just to go back to it, sort of this is my main control here with this histogram. I can do some alternative display stretching with this histogram as well, but this is the main thing. And I can actually switch on some enhancement as well. I think I've got everything basically switched off at the moment. there is some enhancement. Just while we're waiting for it to collect a couple of images here, that is actually an image in pixels. Yes, in pixels of the drift between frames. So we're drifting about 3 or 4 pixels per frame, image frame. So it's not perfectly tracking, but it's good enough to get a decent image, and the stars are still reasonably round. I do think actually, Gary, just on a completely different topic, will probably, I don't think the scope is 100% collimated. It, judging from what I've seen, it probably does need a little bit of tweaking, but I'm kind of reluctant to do that at the moment. But it's not too much of an error. Anyway, so we've collected 21 frames now, about 3 minutes of imaging again. So let's go back and see if we can actually pull a little bit more out of this. Okay, like that. All right, so I think we'll bring the red down a little bit. We may struggle to see as much detail as I've seen in previous nights today, because the moon is getting so high. It's going to make this a little murky. It's going to wash out some of this, I should have said. Okay. Okay, but you can see the two, you can see one side of it pretty clearly here, which is always the clear side. This is the side that shows up really well. And you can see the nice crescent forming here. I don't know if we're going to see, yeah, you can kind of just about see it if you use your imagination, but there's a lot of noise in here. So the crescent actually extends like this. So this is basically where all the gaseous emission is in here. There's kind of a line that runs through here. There's another brightish area here. So you can see we're beginning to pick up some detail here. But I'm pushing this really hard on the histogram. So I'm also getting a lot of background noise and so forth. But, you know, again, considering we're using a 6-inch Smith Cassegrain here, and we've only been on the target for about 5 minutes. Again, this is way more than you're going to see through anything except for a pretty large Dob. Even a 16-inch Dob is not going to give you the color, and I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked at this target in a big Dob, but it's kind of comparable with the Veil network, and the Veil is basically not that visible in a big 16-inch Dob, so I'm assuming this will be fairly dim as well. And you can see a fairly decent shape to it there. I'm not sure if I mentioned that this is about 5,000 light years away, and it would probably benefit a lot from using a filter that is just looking at oxygen emission, or oxygen and hydrogen alpha emission. It would cut down a lot of the background noise and just really accentuate the colors associated with the actual Crescent Nebula itself. But it's not a bad image, really, considering what we're dealing with in terms of the sky. And okay, right. So, and of course I forgot what I was going to do there. So we'll go and have a look at another target here. I think the cooling tower is not too far away from us, although I'm not sure it's going to be particularly exciting a target, but we'll take a look and see if we can find that. Oh, can't find that at the moment. So let's just give me 1 second here, and I'll go get the right coordinates. Okay, well, that wasn't the smartest thing to do, Gary, so let me see if I can find this a different way. Okay. All right, so let's see what else we got going on here. All right, so we had a look at the Crescent Nebula. This is still probably the weakest part of the chain here, is going from target to target, because believe it or not, it's not always straightforward to find your next target to head to. So let's see if we can, if M56 is in the, oh, just missed M56. That's just crossed the meridian as well. So let's not go to M56. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can just quickly see Jupiter. We'll swing around to Jupiter. We're not really set up to do planetary viewing, and stacking software does not work when it comes to planetary viewing. But we'll take a quick look and see what we can see here. Oops, that was a mistake. That's gone on the meridian as well. So I'm gonna stop my mount. Let's go to Saturn instead. That's in the right place. Like I said, doing a meridian switch is not the best place to go. It does create some problems. So we'll just wait for the mount to swing around or swing back, wherever it was going. Oh, here it comes. And the other thing as well with doing a meridian switch is it's always a great way of getting the cables twisted on the mount. So if you haven't got your cable routing right, that's usually a good way of pulling a cable out of something. Okay, so we found Saturn. So let's see, we'll go to our views here. Yep, there's Saturn right there in the middle of our view. As you can see now, the effects of the moon are coming way up here and basically blanking out my thing, my wide field of view camera, and you can actually see Jupiter there off to the top of the image. But we have found Saturn. So let's just bring Saturn up and see. We're going to turn the live stacker off now. We're actually just going to view raw frames, and obviously we don't need a massive amount of exposure here because it's a pretty strong target. So we're gonna, okay, so let's see. All right. Okay. Alrighty. Well, there's Saturn. Um, not not horrible. Let me just try and bring that. See if we can get a tiny bit more. Yeah. Okay. So you can see Saturn there. Um, you find that when you're viewing this frame by frame, it looks horrible because you get atmospheric disturbances, but you can just about see enough of it there to see that there's a planet and a set of rings, so that's good. You can also see that it's basically on its end at the moment, so we can, it's kind of up on its end. It's actually, since I've been viewing it over the last couple of weeks, it's kind of quite significantly tilted. Actually, it was a lot flatter 2 weeks ago. And if you really wanted a decent picture of this, what you would need to do is, and you can do it here, I can capture an AVI file, and I would capture probably 3 to 10,000 frames, individual pictures, and then I would run that through 3 different programs, and you can actually come up with, believe it or not, a relatively decent rendition of the planet that you're looking at. Um, far far better than that thing you are seeing there. And you'll actually see the separation of the rings, and you'll see some of the belts and stuff like that. So it would actually be quite a decent picture. But obviously, just viewing it frame by frame here, we're not going to see anything decent. But you do at least get a view of the planet there as it bounces around in the atmosphere. Right. So since the moon is so bright, let's go and take a swing round onto the moon, because I think it will actually probably be in the field of view. Let's go and see what that looks like. Um, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go back to my. So the moon is down there. May not be quite high enough yet. It's pretty low on the horizon, I can tell you that. This is where the field of view, wide field of view finder comes in really useful, because now I can quickly check once I can find that. That's not good. So that program has stopped running. So let me just close that down a minute. Okay. I lose both of them. Oh, okay. There's the moon come up. So, and as you can see, the moon pretty much takes up the complete field frame. I'm just going to bring the too much. And I can actually, just bringing up a histogram here to sort of see where we are from a overexposing point of view. So we probably want to be around here somewhere. Probably pretty good. So yeah, so there's this evening's moon. Oh, I didn't realize my. Hold on 1 second. Probably should have. Just bring it over. And need to go back. Right. There we go. Okay. Um, yeah. So let's just move that over there. I wonder if I can even bring this full screen. I don't remember necessarily which one of these. Uh, I'm not sure I can bring this full screen. Um, and let's just move that picture again, just so I can get a better position. Okay, so but not too bad a picture of the moon there. And actually, what would be a cool thing to do here, and maybe a little later, after I finish this live stream, I might actually go and just capture 1,000 frames or something of the moon, and I can run it through the same programs that I would use for planetary, and I can tell you it would make with this quality of image, just on a single frame, it would make a really nice job of that. So let's. I probably didn't want to do that. Let's see. I'm just doing a bit of live stacking. I'm not sure that actually this is going to be any better picture wise than not stacking. But probably better to actually look at a single frame. Yeah, not too bad. And we can obviously then go and take a bit closer look at some of the areas if we want to. Here we're kind of moving towards the light dark transition area on the crescent, so you can see some of the craters kind of fairly nicely silhouetted. Although this really isn't the best of moons to be viewing, you usually prefer a much less full moon. But again, not too bad. And ideal for doing public outreach. It gives a whole group of people the capability of looking at the moon in a little bit of detail. So let me go see if I can find a couple of other things perhaps to go look at. I should have actually really have made a note of the which package I preferred with on my phone to do targets, because that would make this whole process a little bit easier at the moment. But I tell you what I could do. I could bring up another package while we're actually looking. I'm going to bring up a program called Carte de Soleil. Carte de Soleil is similar to Stellarium, and the nice thing about Carte de Soleil is I can actually hook it up to my telescope, although I can't control the telescope. So I'm going to just basically connect it to the telescope so that it starts picking up coordinates from the telescope itself. And so I should be, there we go. I should be able to find out where I am, which is right there. Oh, and so immediately, and the reason I like Carte de Soleil is because it gives me sometimes a better view of targets. So I can actually see, I've got a couple of other Messier targets here, M73, although they're not very far away from the moon, so it'll be kind of interesting to see whether these come up. I've got M73 and M72, so let's go and take a look for those and see what we can find. So let's do M73 first. Might work. Let's try that again. Okay, so this is an open cluster. It's going to be fairly close to the moon, so it'll be interesting to see just how much sort of light spillover we get from that. So we now need to go back to, and obviously I've got some parameter adjusting here. I need to take this back to about 10 seconds. We may end up with just too much light coming in here, but we'll give it a shot. Let's turn the live stacker on. Let's clear the live stacker and see what comes up. Well, this is always the danger, of course, of going to a target or that you are not particularly familiar with, because you may find that it's not particularly exciting. But anyway, let's have a look. So actually, we're on target. This M73, and of course I didn't realize this, is an ultrarism of 4 stars in the constellation of Aquarius. An ultrarism is composed of physically unconnected stars that appear close to each other in the sky as seen from the Earth. So there we go. A pretty unassuming Messier target. It kind of amazes me actually. You know, some of these Messier objects are really good, and some of them you wonder how they ever made it to the catalog. But you can certainly see the four stars. Not very exciting, four stars, but those are the four stars that form this asterism, as it's called. Um, so yes, so there we go. There's M73. So we won't let that stack for very long because that's not a particularly exciting object. So let's go and take a quick look at M72 and see if that's any better. Oops. Oh man, this thing is not playing. M7. What are you doing? Come on. 7, 2. Okay, so M72 is a globular cluster. It's actually very close to M73, so we're right on the target already. Right, let's go see what we've got. We'll clear our stack. We'll take our view back out to full. And we'll just give this a minute, collect a few frames. So I presume, Gary, you're still online. Mike is still online. As you can see, I'm having a glass of wine here. I've now got 5 watching. Oh wow! I wonder who else is online. Okay, so I know I've got Mike there and Gary's there, and I'm logged in twice through different things. So Brian, is there any chance that you're online? If you are is it capable that you're? Can you type something? We have just been going through a few Messier objects, and we are looking at. Oh, there it is. We are looking at M72. Okay, which is a. We are really close to the moon here. So this is not going to be particularly good. I'll get us away from the moon at the moment. But here we see pretty poor rendition of, and I'm actually wondering if with the change of temperature over the time that we've been chatting here, whether we've gone slightly out of focus. These stars are beginning to look a tiny bit soft up here. Either that or I'm just getting a lot of light spill down the tube or something. This is M72. Um, yeah, so I think we're going to have to slew away from the moon here. We're a bit too close. We'll go and see if we can find perhaps just a couple more objects here before I wrap this up for this evening. So right, let us go back. Oh, I wonder if we can find the Veil network. That might be kind of cool. Again, let's gotta get the right package here. Let's see if the veil, some part of the veil is visible, because that's a very cool target. One of my kind of favorite targets. So let's see if we can find the veil. Of course, it would help if we could spell it. All right. Yeah, let's go take a look at that. And we're actually slewing away from the moon, which is kind of nice. All right. I think I'm going to turn my mugshot off here as well while we're doing that. I'll keep chatting. You'll know I'm still here. So I am going to switch that off. There we go. And we're going to go to the Veil network. So first of all, let's check. Okay, so let's clear our stack, reset, and while that's beginning to collect some image here, let me bring up my other camera, which managed to switch itself off a few moments ago. Just because it's always nice to kind of take a quick look at that wide field view, just to make sure that I'm not hitting a tree or something. I've only got about 90 degrees of actually sky here, and the horizon is not actually, and the horizon's very, and the lower down is very cloud. So I'm just switching that second camera back on again. Yeah, here we go. So as you can see, yeah, got pretty clear sky there. Everything looks good. So, all right. So let's go and see if we can find. Okay, so take a look for part of the Veil network nebula now. Now, the Veil nebula is actually huge. It would take, I'm not sure of the angular size, but it must be at least 3 or 4 degrees, I'm guessing. So it's huge. So we're going to be looking at less than 1 degree. So we're actually only going to be looking at a small piece of it. And as you can see, my black level is way above my actual histogram peak. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is move that down so that we can actually start seeing it. And then I need to amplify that light. Oh, wow. Not bad. All right. So here's part of the Veil Nebula. There are multiple parts that we can look at, but this is one of the many parts of this, what is a relatively big nebula. Let me bring that red down a tiny bit. Oops, going too far. All right. Oops. And you can see that the adjustment control here is I'm really not touching those histograms very much at all, or these controllers very much at all, and it makes a massive difference to the image that I'll actually see on the screen. But you can see the veil really nicely here. And again, you know, what we're looking at essentially is a cataclysmic event that's taken place at a long time in the past. And this is part of the shock wave that's going out from radiating from the center. So this is basically a big circle. And you can see the beautiful structure in this. Let's see if I can, there we go, highlight that. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, we've got a bit of noise obviously now because we're really pushing the processing hard. But again, I think you can really start to see the structure and shape associated with the Veil network. Veil nebula there. So this is in the constellation of Cygnus. And it's a supernova remnant. So it's a star that obviously at some point in the past, I don't think we know when. I think the estimations are somewhere between about 10 and 20,000 years ago. This star blew up and literally self-destructed. And this is part of, like I said, a circular shock wave that's going out from the point of explosion. So we're looking again at about 3 minutes of stacked images here. And interestingly enough, you can see that my flat frames are not perfect because you can see there is a change in darkness as we go across the frame. But again, I'm really pushing the processing here, so it's kind of a bit unfair. But it certainly shows the flat frame is not perfect. So this is one part of the Veil network nebula. And this is a really striking nebula. There's some fantastic pictures taken by the astro guys of this. It's kind of a favorite target at the moment. I'm going to try and actually find another part of it which I like a lot because there's actually a very bright central star that is also features in the thing as well. And for that, I'm probably going to need to go back to Carte du Soleil in a couple of minutes. So let me go back to Carte du Soleil, find out where I am, right, which is here. And here we go. I'm actually going to bring this up on Carte du Soleil here. Bring it up in a little bit of detail. All right, so here's Carte du Soleil. This is one of the reasons I like Carte du Soleil compared to Stellarium. It does kind of like outline where some of these nebula are in a different way, which is kind of easy to visualize. And you can see here the circular supernova remnant here. So presumably the explosion took place somewhere in here. And the place I'm going to try and get us to, so we're here at the moment on what's called I think this is called the Western Veil. And we're going to go to the Eastern Veil, which is over here. So now I've got to try and find a target to aim at here. So I'm going to need, okay, so 52 sigma. Come on. Right, let me see if I can find, I was hoping it was going to give me an NGC number. Okay, so, well, actually, let's go and look at this part of the veil first. So NGC 6979. Okay, so we're going to come back to here. We're going to do find targets. We're just going to move a fraction here. NGC 6979. So we're now just going to slew a little bit in terms of our positioning. Hopefully, if we go to back to search Carte du Soleil, yeah, we're on target. So we're now in a different part of the veil. So if I clear my stack and just let that re-image, we should now see another part of the supernova remnant pop up. And while we're doing that, I'm going to see if I can find an NGC coordinate for, yeah, I should be able to get an NGC coordinate here for the other part. This one might be a bit trickier. I can see a little bit in there. This one's going to be, I think this one's going to be tricky. So we'll give this one just a couple of minutes. Let me see if I can, yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm going to swap again because I don't think I'm going to see much on this one. This one's going to actually, it's kind of faint. I'm going to see a lot of noise and I can't be bothered to wait for it to stack. So let me go and find what the target I was actually looking for. I think I found the NGC number for it now, so it's 6992. Hopefully I got the right one. All right, so I'm just moving the mount round now onto that. That wasn't what I wanted. So let's try 6960. So let me just move it again. NGC 6960, NGC 6960. Okay, let's try this one. Yeah, I think I might have got a bit lucky that time. So, yeah, that's where we want to be. So where we're going to be now is we're going to be looking at the other side of the veil. As you can see here, and the reason this side is kind of pretty is because there's this really nice star that sits right in the center, which is 52 Psi, I think. Um, and it makes for a kind of a pretty picture. So let me go reset my stack. Live stack. Let's clear my stack. And hopefully we'll be able to bring something up here. That wasn't what I was hoping for. Hold on. Oops. What am I doing? Oh, I got the wrong bugger. I got the wrong camera. Sorry. Right. Let's try going over here, clearing this stack, and let's see if we get what we're looking for here. Yeah, this is going to work. All right. So we looked at, first of all, we looked at the Eastern Veil, which was NGC 6992. And now we're actually looking at what's called the Western Veil, or Caldwell 34, which is NGC 6960. It's also known as the Witch's Finger, the Witch's Broom, or the Finger of God. And you'll kind of see that when this image sort of stabilizes if we give it a few frames. Right. Okay. When I look at Pacific, now it shows only you and I. Oh, okay. Actually, Mike, I'm now still showing 5. I'm still showing 5, Mike, if you can hear it. Oh, actually, now I'm showing 6. That's kind of weird. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on, Mike, to be perfectly honest. Hopefully you're still there. Right, so let's take a look at this. And then I think we'll call it a day. Yeah. Again, it's not the best of evenings for this, but we'll be there. Let's see if we can actually kind of, if you, that's kind of what it looks like in a Dob, actually, in a big 16-inch Dob. It looks pretty much like that, what you would typically see. The star would obviously be a lot crisper. But let's see if I can, God, this thing's tricky. Yeah. It's not helping today that we've got so much moonlight. It's beginning to spoil the images, I think. This is nowhere near as clear as it was when I shot this the other night. In fact, I might be able to show you what I shot the other night. Yes, I don't think this is going to clean up particularly well. So that was 960. I think I might. Let me see if I've got a better image from a couple of nights ago of this one. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so that was from 5 or 6 nights ago. As you can see, and that I think was probably only about 43 frames stacked. But you can see I'm suffering far less from presumably what is the moon coming up and completely washing things out. Um, there's a much clearer image, and you can see the beautiful structure down what, and you can see why it's called the witch's broom now. It's kind of obvious, the big fat broomy tail part and the handle here, and that is kind of a nice shot. So anyway, I think I am probably done. We've been on going for about 80 odd minutes now, and I think the streaming went fairly well. Mike, I'd love to hear any thoughts or comments that you have with respect to the stream, whether you saw any buffering, audio, video quality, all of that sort of good stuff, because this is the first time I've actually tried to stream from, well, using this OBS software and YouTube. Yeah, so, and Gary, if you're still online, like to hear some comments as well. Hopefully it's been enjoyable. I think what it does show is that Gary's little scope is capable of a lot once it's hooked up with some accessories. Oh, and by the way, Gary, I'm actually I bought a Dew Shield as well for your scope. I've no idea how you ever managed to use that scope without a Dew Shield, because the blooming thing just, I mean, the humidity's high, right? But it just, like, within an hour, it's like the corrector plate is just like covered. It just goes all. So I bought a Dew Shield for it, which seems to work quite well. I actually made one initially, but I actually got a proper Celestron one now as well. Anyway, I am going to, so when you, oh, so Mike said no buffering. It's a little quiet here for me. Okay, well, I'm just using, I haven't worked out yet how to use the microphone on a headset here from this laptop. So I'm actually just using the built-in microphone in the laptop. And Mike said when I turn my head, it gets very muffled and hard to hear. So thanks for that. That kind of makes sense. And I do mumble sometimes as well. And I'm sure I'm on my second or third glass of wine here, so that's probably not helping either. Anyway, guys, really glad you could join me. It's been fun. If any of you have got any more feedback, that'd be great. And I presume this video will end up on YouTube anyway, so I'll be kind of interested to see what it looks like tomorrow. So thanks for joining, and hopefully you found it interesting, and maybe more soon. There are a number of people now that are doing these online streaming events, so it's kind of interesting. You do tend to learn quite a bit and see some stuff that you haven't probably seen before. All right, I'll say good night, folks, and we'll see you soon. So I got to work out now to shut all of this down. Okay, ciao.